Hi, and welcome to Engaging and Empowering School Libraries, a podcast that aims to raise the profile of school libraries about topics that are current in today's school library world. Today is a special edition, as I'm on my own with only one guest. If you join me normally, I have two co-hosts and you two or three guests. But due to the fast-moving pace of ChatGPT and AI, I didn't want to wait to get everybody together. So Dominic and I are here tonight to chat it through. I'm sure there'll be much more to say in the coming months on this topic, so we will be coming back to it, and I hope Dominic will join us too. So as I've already mentioned, Dominic Sunderland is here with me tonight. He's a head teacher of Capella House School. He's agreed to talk to me after I contacted Lynn McAllister, who mentioned that her head teacher was talking about ChatGPT at their inset day. So welcome, Dominic. Thank you for joining me tonight. And can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. So I'm, as you mentioned, I'm head teacher at Capella House School. We're all through school, based on two sites for students with speech language communication needs. So we go from 4 to 16. That's a broad umbrella term, but we're a special school basically that caters for young people with language communication difficulties. They've all got education healthcare plans. A bit about myself, I suppose. I've always been interested in technology, and that's kind of why I try and keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in schools. In all my previous roles, I've been an IT, as it used to be, coordinator, then it was ICT, then it was computing, now it's computer science. As long as one of my passions been obviously special educational needs, it has always been technology and how we can use it to support the roles of teachers. And I'm not just a head teacher, I still actively teach myself. I still teach computing and computer science, which I think is really important. But one of my big drivers of using technology, I think education in the UK is still so far behind the rest of the world in terms of the use of technology and how we prepare young people for using technology. I think we've got a lot of catching up to do.
Absolutely. So before we start, I think we probably need to just explain a little bit about what ChatGPT is. And before we came on tonight, I had a quick Google search, as you do. So as far as I'm concerned, ChatGPT is a language processing artificial intelligence tool that is capable of generating human-like text. It's able to understand human language as it is spoken and written down, meaning it can understand what it's being fed and able to feed it back in the same kind of way. Would you agree that that's about right?
Yeah, the way I kind of explain it to staff and to students as well is it's a chatbot. Lots of actually students more so than staff are familiar with the term chatbot because they use that on games and things like that. And it's, sometimes if you log on to something online, you're looking for support or you're looking to contact a utility company and it says, oh, hi, I'm here to help. It pops up on the screen. It's kind of like that in terms of it acts like a person and it responds conversationally to things you put into it. If you ask it a question, it will answer and it kind of tries to replicate the dialogue that would happen between you speaking to someone else, maybe an expert in something or when you're asking for help on something.
Absolutely. So a lot of us will have come across these kind of chatbots before. And I don't know about you, but they're so irritating. They can never actually answer the question you want them to.
No, they can't. They can't.
ChatGPT, though, seems to be slightly different to this.
Yeah, so I suppose the reason my reason for thinking it, well, my hypothesis for that is that those chatbots are normally very basic, normally made by a small team of software developers, whereas OpenAI, the company that set up ChatGPT, is a lot bigger organization and they have access to far more resources. And they've spent a lot of time before launching it on getting it to kind of be more human. Not just come up with stock answers, not just come up with lines of code to give a response. They try and be more responsive and use machine learning to give it a more natural response.
So those chatbots are like a step greater than a frequently asked questions page, isn't it?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. But they're limited. They're limited by generally because companies don't want to spend a fortune on them. That you buy it as a piece of software, and it's only as good as what's been coded behind the scenes.
Okay. Whereas go on then.
Yeah, I was just say where ChatGPT is, it kind of forever evolving, so it won't give just stock answers. It's always going to be improving depending on what's put into it. And you've got the opportunity to say to ChatGPT, "Oh, can you make that clearer?" Or "I don't understand." Or whereas you get frustrated if you're speaking to British Gas, and they'll say, "Thanks, have I been helpful? Did that help you?" Whereas ChatGPT will actually try and use machine learning or AI to try and evolve and be better than that.
Absolutely. So I know when ChatGPT came out, the sort of well, it was end of November, wasn't it? But I was aware of it sort of early December. And with all of these new tech things, I like to think to myself, especially AI, I don't really understand it. I'm going to stick my head in the sand. I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. And then obviously social media exploded, and I thought, actually, I can't just ignore. So I need to find out more. One of the things that I've done in my whole lifetime, I've got children myself, they're now grown up, but when Facebook came out, when Twitter started, when all of these different things, the way to learn and understand about them is actually to jump in and use it. Yeah. So hence that's what I did, and it is, honestly, it is fascinating. But it is such a new thing. What made you decide to run an inset day on it, or an inset session on it?
I suppose similar to you, I was aware of it because I kind of follow both tech and education on social media and on the web, and I saw it and I just thought it sounded really exciting. And then when I started seeing some educational bloggers and different educationalists and teachers using it on social media, I saw the power of it, and I thought, actually, this has got the potential to really be revolutionary in terms of education and the power it can have for teachers. I thought it's important to act quickly on things like this, because if you can become an early adopter, anything else that can make teachers' lives easier or educators' lives easier, I think it's important to do. And I saw that, and I thought, actually, why not act on it straight away? Because it's just important to do that. And also part of me, the tech side of me, is the reason OpenAI are not charging anything at the moment is because they want to improve it. And I think that's a good opportunity, actually. The more we can get educators using it, the better it'll be tailored for educational purposes.
So did you find that most of your teachers had heard of it, or were some of them shocked by this was the first that they'd heard?
No, so I had one teacher that had heard of it over the Christmas break and had actually started to use it a bit. I think a family member had mentioned it, and they had a little play around with it. The majority had never heard of it.
Okay. Yeah. So early adoption is certainly where we're at. Even just having this conversation, really, which is an exciting place to be, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned a little bit about it being an exciting thing for education. Do you think it's and having had a look, it can create lesson plans, it can do marking schemes, it can do everything apart from make your dinner if you asked it to,
Yeah.
Do you think it's really going to the fact that we've already mentioned that it might be it's free for now?
Yeah.
Is it going to have an impact, do you think, on education if they bring in, I suppose, long-winded question, even if they make it that you have to pay for it, do you think it will still have an impact?
Yeah, definitely. I do. I said this, so we're based on two sites. I've done the inset session I've done now. I've done it twice. I did it once for my secondary team and then once for my primary team. And I didn't say this lightly, but I do really think it will be revolutionary. It can have the biggest impact on teaching since we started using the internet in classrooms. I really think it's that powerful. I think at the moment in education, we've got recruitment crisis, we've got well-being and work-life balance, and teachers being overwhelmed. It's such a key issue, and this has the potential to really support that in both those areas. And so I really do think it's going to revolutionize how teachers are able to use technology to support them in their day-to-day jobs.
Because so it's going to make things quicker in certain circumstances. It's going to the students already know about it.
Yeah.
So, and there's lots of talk about it's going to write your essay for you. So there's a lot of education to do on the student side of it, but there's a lot of education to do on the teacher's side of it. And my children were little when the internet started in schools, and we went through that phase of come home and click, and there's a lot of times that new technology is brought into schools where teachers aren't given time to learn how to use it or to work with something. Do you think that will need to be put in place, and is it likely, or is it just going to be thrown at them like everything is?
I think one of the positives, and I'm not, like I say, I'm not by any way endorsed by OpenAI or ChatGPT myself.
No.
One of the things I think they've been limiting to technology in schools previously, and I've seen this throughout my whole career, is that sometimes when there was a fad, every school would have iPads because iPads were a trendy thing to have in schools. But that's more complicated for teachers to adopt because you have to learn about it, you have to load the software onto it, you have to be confident in distributing the apps to all the different software, and there's a layer of complication in there. And that's the same if you get different computers or whiteboards coming to classrooms. There's another part of it, another layer to it, that you have to learn how to use that technology. With this, it is so simple. Like everyone's used to going onto a website or Google and searching things, and because it's so simple and we already have that skill, I think it removes that. So therefore I think it's easier for people to get into and get on top of it and understand it.
Okay, so you don't think the learning to use it is going to be as great as other things in the past?
No, definitely not.
So we're saying it's not a passing fad.
No, definitely not.
We're saying that the AI and possibly ChatGPT or something similar is going to remain.
Yeah.
So what do you think how can schools exploit something like ChatGPT to benefit? Like we've touched a little bit on that it may make teachers' lives easier.
Yeah.
How do you see, can you explain some of the ways? I mentioned a couple. Can you think of any others?
I can talk practically about some. But before that, just going back to the point about the ease of use. And I think something that people or teachers definitely don't realize is they're using AI already in their daily lives. So we're a Google school. We use Google as our kind of online system, and lots of schools are starting to use this now, Google for Education. And AI is built into that. So the smart compose when you're writing an email, when it's suggesting words for you. If you were using word process, we have been for ages, the spell check on that, that's all AI bit in there. So we're already used to using it, maybe subconsciously.
Okay.
Even like when you type in on Google, you start a search, it will often predict what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So like I said, I think it's more intrinsic, or it's already there. It's the staff, but people maybe don't realize they're using it.
But something like ChatGPT needs you to think slightly harder than possibly just Googling something.
Potentially, but again, it kind of links to what I was saying there. It's teachers already know what they need to do and what they want to do, so they've already got that part of it there. It's just a case of actually just putting it into ChatGPT. The majority of teachers I know are very busy people, and often if suddenly me as the head teacher says, oh, I need you to cover a geography lesson today on rivers, my teacher, my cover supervisor will go straight onto Google and type in year 7 lesson on rivers. And ChatGPT works in that exact way. So I'm saying it's nothing new, but what you get out of it is a lot better and a lot more refined. So some of the uses, like you said, you're asking about uses that teachers can use it for, something like that. If you want to plan a sequence of work, you can type in just something as basic as give me a lesson on rivers for your year 7 students, and it will give you something. But what's great about it is teachers then can refine that. Can you give me a sequence of 6 lessons on rivers for a year 7 group that have reading ages of 7 to 14? Can you include a starter, main task, and plenary? Can you align that to Rosenshine's 12 principles of instruction? And it will give you that level of detail. And once it's generated it, you can ask it to generate it again, or you can even refine it, saying, could you present that information in the table? Could you present that information in a table and add a quiz? can you give me, and then you kind of conversation goes on with it, and you could say, oh, can you give me what the keywords and definitions will be for this? So all the supplementary things you'd need as a teacher can go there. You can even say, can you suggest some information books? And I suppose this is for you as a librarian, be interesting. Can you suggest some information books based on the topic of rivers appropriate for a year 7 class with a reading age of? And it does it. Can you suggest some YouTube links to videos? It's just, rather than having to go on the internet or to Google and do all those things yourself, it can do it all there. And then you've got everything you need.
So some of the things that I've been reading is that it likes to make things up. When it doesn't have the answer, it will make it up, and it can make it sound real. So for example, librarian friends of mine have been asking it to create references, and it looks perfect. It looks great. But the links link to nothing. So there is an element of teaching, even if students do decide that they're going to grab it and write their essay with it.
Yeah.
At the moment, it should be relatively easy to spot if a student has written something with ChatGPT. It is about, so there's two elements is where I'm going, I suppose, is the fact that for teachers, what you've just described sounds amazing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking back to when I was a child and robots were going to take over the world and take everybody's jobs. What you've just described is making something quicker. It's not taking over the teacher's role, because the teacher still has to think to themselves, how am I going to teach that? What am I going to do in front of the class? What is useful? What is not? What am I capable of?
Yeah. And
their own personality and their own teaching skills comes into the fore. Yeah,
and that's what I said to staff. I made it clear it's only as good as what you put into it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a geography teacher, so if I using that example of looking for something in rivers, I wouldn't be able to discern whether that content was appropriate or not. But I know computing, so when I tested it myself extensively before doing an inset with staff, because I wanted to be sure that I didn't get caught out. So I asked it to produce a unit of work on Python coding for year 8, and I gave some specific criteria based on that. And almost word for word, and in fact better than the unit plan I had that I came up with a couple of years ago that I've been using and refining for the last 4 or 5 years. It was almost a perfect match for it, but in fact it was better because it had some easier solutions and some better explanations of how to do things. So that gave me the confidence as the subject specialist, that ensuring staff or a subject specialist, they can do that. Or with anything we use, it's always, you've got to be discerning. And I think in terms of students, I think the stuff around students using it and as writing essays and plagiarism concerns, I think that's a bit of a non-starter, because I think in education anyway, we put so much emphasis on teaching what I believe are the wrong things, just teaching facts. But actually we should be teaching in the digital world young people to be discerning and to be able to identify reliability, bias, all of those things. And it kind of links into something like ChatGPT.
Absolutely. It's one of the perfect tools for school librarians, because we teach critical thinking, we teach
exactly.
Inquiry.
And questioning is going to become a massive part. It should be already, but it's not part of the curriculum, where it's how do you ask questions? Like,
absolutely.
What information do you want, and how can you ask a question that's going to get you the best form of that information?
Absolutely. So it's going to make us, there's a lot of hype about it's going to stop people thinking, but actually you do need to think more.
Exactly.
An example, I thought, right, I'll use it for myself, and I write a few blogs, and I got it to give me an outline of a blog, which was great. I was like, oh, this is saving me loads of time. And then I needed to walk away from it, because that isn't how I write blogs.
No.
My blogs come from me and what I'm thinking and how I talk, not as a structure. So it's about finding that balance, isn't it, between using it as a tool to encourage you to think about something else that maybe you hadn't considered before, but also knowing when it isn't useful.
An example you've just described there. So for example, what I've asked it to do, and what I know colleagues have used it, if you write something, ask it, how could I improve this writing? How would you critically analyze this piece of writing? So if you put in, and then it can give you good responses, and actually it can give you good starting points.
So
and again, it's that dialogue with it that you can use
to trying to get that balance though, isn't it? Because I did get it to write me a blog.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was good. And could I have posted it as one of my own? It doesn't quite get the chatty vibe that I hope that I come across.
Your personality. It can't do personality. Yeah.
No. And would I want it to write a blog for me? No, I wouldn't really, because I want my thoughts and my ideas written down on the page. So that's what's the learning process of this, isn't it? It's like it's going to make yourself life easier. And we almost have to try and get that across to students, don't we? Is the fact that, you can get to write you an essay, but it's not yours. And have you learned anything? And of course, it's that kind of questioning that's going to come once you are getting students to submit an essay.
But that's what you can use that exactly, like with students. If a student uses it to write an essay or a piece of writing, you can then as a class analyze that piece of writing and say, why is this not a piece of writing that is going to get you high marks? Or why is this not a really creative piece of writing? What's good, what's bad? And again, it's that critical analysis and the thinking skills and getting people's developing their metacognition skills of getting them to use the AI to help them develop their own thinking about what their strengths are and how they learn.
Yeah, so there's a lot of positives, isn't there? It's for those that are scared, for those that are unsure. What would your advice be to someone who has very little knowledge of ChatGPT or AI? What would your advice be? If they
have a go, choose something you know about, or interested in, have a go and just start playing with it and start really trying to have fun with it and try and catch it out and do things like that, because then you'll be surprised. So my head of primary, she was really skeptical. She's like, oh no, this is scary, it's not going to replace us. And I was like, no, it's not, but look at the power it has and think about how you can use that to support you. And the other thing I always say, it's not the magic bullet. It's not the magic bullet to getting all your planning done, to helping write reports or to helping mark things. That's that can never be done. There's no such thing as a magic bullet. It's not a magic wand, but it can help you when you're stuck, when you're tired. It can give you good ideas. Something else that teachers sometimes struggle, particularly in the context as mine, special needs school, is explaining things in a way that is really simple to understand. You can use it. You can give it a topic and say, could you explain this as if I was a 5-year-old?
I spotted that.
And it's great. It really does it really, really well.
It's very, very clever.
So it's people that are skeptical, I say just have a go at it first of all, but don't think about it as the solution to everything. Try and think of it, okay, how can it help me? And be conscious of the limitations that it does have.
Yeah. I was going to finish on that, but I've got one question that I jumped across, and it was I've heard that some schools in America have banned
New York
schools using it. But banning something banning it inside a school is not going to prevent students using it outside school. No. So would you agree that actually that's not a good idea? And from what we've been saying, I would suggest that it's education that schools need if it becomes mainstream, because I would imagine at the minute, because there's this talk of it being monetarized and it might be costing, that schools currently aren't going to jump in too headlong at this point, but banning it doesn't seem to be a way forward, does it?
No, and it's the same again, like I say, my background in working in computing and computing science in schools, we've had this before, and banning is something that I've never subscribed to with anything. Because, for example, Roblox, there's been lots of issues around Roblox and safeguarding, and schools often send letters and say, be aware, you should not let your child use Roblox. It's the total wrong approach, because you kind of force it away from the public eye. You force pupils are going to do what they want anyway on devices and things at home, and it's about educating them. It's about educating parents and families, and it's about actually be honest and open. And if we're preparing young people for the digital world we live in, you have to have conversations about what are the negative impacts of things. And that's the guidance from lots of the London Grid for Learning. They've always supported that in saying, actually, don't ban, talk about it, explain why they shouldn't be using it.
Absolutely. It's such a fascinating topic, Dominic. And we could talk for it. Well, I could personally talk about it for hours. This was just a brief introduction to what ChatGPT is going to give us potentially in the future. I do thank you for joining me. It was really interesting. We are going to try and do another podcast again with a few more guests, probably early February. So hopefully you'll be able to join me again then. If you've been listening to tonight's chat and want to learn more, so if you don't want to, this is my plug, if you want to not have to wade through the mountains of information that's out there, I'm running an introductory webinar to ChatGPT on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. And the link to that session will be in the podcast notes below. So thank you very much for joining me this evening, Dominic. I will stop the recording now.
Thank you.
Stop recording. Okay, so thank you so much for doing